Alright guys, so I hope all is well with you. What we're looking at is just kind of to help us with this next unit, we're just trying to review a couple of quick things about factoring. And in this case, we want to factor out what the greatest common factor is, and that's the largest thing that goes into both the terms. So if I'm looking at 20 and 36, I'm asking myself, what is the largest thing that goes into both 20 and 36? And I know that 4 is that number that goes into both of those terms. So I'm going to divide both of these terms by 4. Because both of these have an n, I can also take out an n as well. So factoring is basically me rewriting it as a product. So me rewriting 20n squared minus 36n is the same thing as me saying 4n. 20 divided by 5 is 5. N squared over n is n. And then 36 divided by 4 is minus 9. So 20n minus 36n is the same thing as 4n times 5n minus 9. If I look at this next two quantities, I have a 10 and I have a 16. I know that 2 is the largest thing that goes into both of those two terms. And I also know that p also goes into them, so I can divide it by 2p. So I end up with 2p. 10 divided by 2 is 8p plus, or no, 5p plus 8. So that's going to be 2p times 5p plus 8. That would be the factored form for that. Now if I look at this next one, I have 25 and I have 5. I know that 5 goes into both of these. So I can divide both of them by 5. And they both have n's. The smallest number of n is n squared. So I can do 5n squared. 25 divided by 5 is 5. N cubed over n squared is n minus 1. So it would be 5n squared times 5n minus 1. Looking at this last one, I'm looking at 20 and 36. I know that 4 goes into both of these, and also n, because they both have n's. So I can rewrite this as 4n times 5n minus 9. That would be the factored form. So we're going to try to use this to try to help us factor something a little bit greater, like a quadratic. So when we look at something like 5r squared minus 43r plus 56, we're going to use like the grouping method that you guys learned about in Algebra 2 to factor this out. So we are trying to figure out like the product and the sum. In this case, to figure out what the product is, we're going to take a and c. If you guys remember, this is a, that's b, that's c. So we're going to take 5 times 56. And when I multiply those two things together, I get a product of 280. So I'm looking for things that get me a product of 80, but a sum of negative 43. So I'm going to think about everything in the whole wide world that gets me 280. Now it's going to take me a little bit of time, so there is a way that I can use the calculator to do that. So if I look at my calculator, I'm going to just press 280 divided by x. And this is going to give me everything that multiplies together and that gets me 280. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to press second and graph, and we're going to look at the table function. And now we are looking for something that's a product or a sum of negative 43. So looks like I'm all in the positives right now, so I want to go backwards. I know negative 2 and negative 140 is negative 142. Negative 4 and negative 70, that looks like it's going to be negative 174, negative 74, sorry. Negative 5 and negative 56 is negative 61. We're getting closer and closer. Negative 7, negative 47, negative 8, and negative 35. That looks like that's our magic number. So we are looking at negative 8 and negative 35. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just rewrite this. So we started off with 5r squared minus 8r minus 35r plus 56. So I've just rewritten this. I know that those two things will get me that negative 43r. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to just rewrite this again. Minus 8r minus 35r plus 56. And I am going to group them. So I'm going to group these two together and then group these two together. And we are going to factor out the greatest common factor in each of these two groups. So like if I look at 5r squared and 8r, my greatest common factor is r, so I can divide both of those by r. So I have r times 5r minus 8. Now we're going to look at negative 35r and 56. I know that 7 goes into both of those, but I also know that I have a negative leading coefficient in that case, so I'm going to divide it by negative 7. So I get negative 7, and I end up with 5r minus 8. What you guys will notice is that 5r minus 8 is the same. So when I rewrite this in factored form, it is going to be r minus 7, and then 5r minus 8. That would be your factored form. Okay? So I have one more example, and then I'm going to have you guys try a couple on the next page. So like looking at this example, now my product that I'm working with is 7 and negative 32, which turns out to be negative 224. The sum that I'm looking for is b, which is negative 52. So I'm trying to figure out everything that gets me a product of negative 224, but a sum of negative 52. So we're going to go to y equals, and in this case I'm going to change it to negative 224 divided by x. And then I'm going to just go to second and graph. Now we're looking for a sum of negative 52. So I'm adding x's and y's together with hopes of getting negative 52. So I'm going to work. Ooh, looks like I'm going in the wrong direction. All right, well, looking here, I got negative 4 and 56. I know that's positive 52, so I know that the opposites are going to work. So I know it's going to be negative 56 and positive 4. That is the pair that we're working with. So I'm going to rewrite this as 4 terms. I'm going to do 7a squared minus 56a plus 4a minus 32. Now I'm going to group. So I'm going to group the first 2 terms, and I'm going to group the last 2 terms. Looking for the greatest common factor, I got a 7 and 56. I know that 7 goes into both of those terms, and they also have a's, so I can divide them by 7a. So I have 7a, a minus 8. Now I'm looking at 4a and 32. I know 4 goes into both of those. So I got plus 4a minus 8. So your factored form would be 7a plus 4a minus 8. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. I'm going to ask you guys to try the last 4 on the next page, and we will talk tomorrow.